Kia that's hello in Eastern Aranda. My name is Dr. Kevin Dolman. My people are part of the Eastern Aranda families of Central Australia. I've my own business working as an evaluation consultant, and I specialise in assisting government agencies to design and conduct evaluations of programs and services for Indigenous families and communities. I've always worked in jobs aiming to help families, and in doing so I've had quite a variety of careers. I've been in the government sector, the private sector and the community sector. Over this time, my attention has been focused on improving the quality of the programs and services for families. I understand you'd like to conduct an evaluation to assess what you are doing well, to encourage young people to go to university, and to learn about what you could do better. You might not know that much about evaluation or what a good quality evaluation would look like. Well, you're not alone. Over the past few decades, the quality of evaluations on Indigenous programs and services has not been done very well. A big review of Commonwealth Government Indigenous expenditure over many years highlighted the poor quality and the lack of rigour of many of the evaluations that have been undertaken. The review also found that many evaluations appeared to have been conducted simply because they were required to be done, or for self-serving reasons, with a view to perpetuating the program. However, in more recent times, there's been some good work done to improve the overall quality of evaluations in Indigenous programs and services. Some really good advice about evaluating in Indigenous contexts has been published, and I would encourage you to get familiar with that advice. First, there are many different ways to evaluate a program. It is important to remember that it does not need to be a really big project. Last year, the Productivity Commission published a detailed and comprehensive guide to ensuring Commonwealth Government agencies conduct better quality evaluations. It states, there are no simple formulas. Different contexts call for different approaches to evaluation. Engagement and partnership with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people is fundamental to lifting the quality of evaluations, as is planning early so that the right questions are asked and the right data is collected. To sum this up, your evaluation just needs to be focused on what you would like to know, and that you need to ensure that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are delivering and receiving the services are involved in the evaluation. Another strategy for ensuring good quality evaluations is that all evaluations should seek formal approval from a research ethics committee, such as the Human Research Ethics Committee at the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies. Seeking ethics approval means an independent specialist committee of very experienced Indigenous and non-Indigenous researchers will take a careful look at your evaluation plan. Their approval is required before the evaluation can commence. The value of this is that it provides an independent oversight of the evaluation and ensures a comprehensive review of your plan is undertaken very early in the process. Most, if not all, evaluations of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander programs should seek ethics approval. It's got a quite broad test. It states all research that impacts on or is of particular significance to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, including the planning, collection and analysis and dissemination of information or knowledge in any format or medium which is about or may affect Indigenous peoples, either collectively or individually. Seeking ethics approval is time consuming. It requires a fair bit of preparatory work. Good planning is required because it can take time. The Ethics Committee will look at your evaluation plan and assess it against 4 key principles. Those principles are Indigenous self-determination, Indigenous leadership, impact and value, sustainability and accountability. I'll explain very briefly what the Research Committee is looking for in your evaluation plan against each of these principles. For Indigenous self-determination, they're assessing whether the evaluation will contribute to recognition and respect of the people in the community and the culture. engagement and collaboration with the community. Is the community participating with informed consent? And does your evaluation plan encourage cultural capability and learning? The second principle of Indigenous leadership, they're looking for whether it's Indigenous-led research, whether it's framed around Indigenous perspectives and participation, whether Indigenous knowledge and data is protected and recognised, and cultural intellectual property. The third principle of impact and value, they're looking for whether the evaluation involves a shared agreement between the evaluator and the community about the benefit, the impact, and the value of the research. Evaluators should be aware that understandings of impact and risk may differ between the researchers and the community partners. The fourth principle of sustainability and accountability. The committee is going to assess how does the evaluation work towards supporting the recognition and protection of Indigenous land and waters, the ongoing Indigenous governance arrangements in the community and in the organisations. And it's going to look at how you plan to report the findings and whether you comply with the ethics principles. Overall, you're really required to think about how the evaluation will engage with and help the community. Now I'm going to describe very briefly the principles that the Productivity Commission says are important for good quality evaluations. It has an overarching principle of centering Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, perspectives, priorities and knowledges. This principle is at the core of their strategy. It says that centering Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, perspectives, priorities and knowledges is fundamental to improving the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. What Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people value, their knowledges and their lived experiences, needs to be reflected in what is evaluated, how the evaluation is undertaken, and the objectives of the policies and programs. Another principle the Productivity Commission promotes is the principle of credible. Credibility is grounded in ensuring a rigorous methodology. Methodology should be shaped around Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander values, perspectives and knowledges. As stated earlier, the Productivity Commission does not endorse any particular evaluation types, approaches or methods. Agencies and evaluators should use types that are rigorous and that are fit for purpose, that answer the questions that you'd like answered, and that they suit the context in which the policy or the program is being delivered. Also, the size and importance of the policy or program, and ensuring that the time frame and resources is available for the evaluation. Another principle the Productivity Commission states is usefulness. It says evaluations should be embedded in the policy cycle. This will improve the quality of evaluations by ensuring that adequate resources are devoted to evaluation, to baseline and monitoring data, and that evaluation questions are closely linked to the objectives of the policy or the program. It will also mean that evaluation findings are available at key decision points during implementation and to ensure continuous improvement. The fourth of 5 principles the Productivity Commission talks about is transparency. Transparency improves accountability. It allows the lessons from the evaluation to feed into decision making. It involves publishing the evaluation findings, information on how the evaluations were planned and conducted, and how the findings were used to improve policies and programs. Publishing details of how they were planned and conducted allows users of these reports to judge the credibility, the ethics and the rigour of the evaluation techniques. And it will also help them to see how Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were involved and engaged in the evaluation process. The final principle is ethics. Applying ethical standards improves the quality and consistency of evaluation, and it can go a long way to ensuring that the evaluation has a positive impact on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Formal review by an ethics committee will be required for some, but not all evaluations. For those that don't go through an ethics committee, all projects should include systematic and well-documented assessment of the actual risks, the risks for the participants, who may well be in quite a vulnerable position. Agencies should also ensure that evaluation budgets and timeframes are sufficient for evaluators to fulfil ethical requirements. If I just may, my conclusion is that we need more Indigenous evaluators right around the country. So I encourage you to give it a crack. The Professional Association of Evaluators, called the Australian Evaluation Society, has been at the forefront of supporting existing and emerging Indigenous evaluators. It has also done a lot to build the skills of non-Indigenous people who conduct evaluations of Indigenous programs and services. It delivers the annual Indigenous Evaluation Award for excellence in this field of important work. If you are interested in evaluation, I would encourage you to consider becoming a member of the Australian Evaluation Society. I wish you all the best in your future evaluation endeavours.